Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to totally dismantle a super common and frankly really powerful illusion. It's this idea that artificial intelligence is just some cold, perfectly neutral brain operating in a vacuum. We've kind of been trained to think of technology as just objective math, but as we're about to see, the reality is far more complicated and, well, deeply human.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty provocative question to anchor our entire explainer today. Do we really trust machines to be completely free from human prejudice? Think about it. When an algorithm makes a decision about your mortgage application, or scans your resume for a job interview, or even assists in a medical diagnosis, is it really making that choice based on pure, untainted logic? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the myth of neutral AI, figure out exactly how bias sneaks into these systems, check out some real-world discrimination, dig into the theories behind the bias, and finally talk about how we actually fix this warped mirror.
Okay, starting right off with part one, the myth of neutral AI.
I want you to try and think about AI not as some super smart, independent thinker, but actually just as a mirror. And what does a mirror do? It simply reflects whatever is put in front of it. In this case, AI is soaking up our history, our social constructs, and in many cases, it ends up actually amplifying our biggest societal flaws.
Garbage in, garbage out. You've probably heard that old computer science saying, but honestly, it has literally never been more relevant. Back in the day, early computing was just about getting the job done. Programmers weren't necessarily pausing to think about massive, unintended social consequences. They were just implicitly building upon the prevailing norms of the time. So if you feed an AI data that's already tainted by historical inequalities, the output is absolutely going to be tainted too. No way around it.
Which brings us to part two, how this bias actually infiltrates these systems.
So, data bias doesn't just sneak in through one backdoor. It actually has a whole bunch of ways to get in. Take sampling bias, for example. If you train a facial recognition system almost entirely on pictures of one specific demographic, well, it's going to fail when it tries to identify anyone else. Or think about labeling bias. This is where human reviewers might subjectively grade a resume differently just based on a candidate's perceived gender, which literally transfers their own unconscious prejudices straight into the training data. The data itself is kind of a minefield of human subjectivity.
And when that bias data gets put to work, it creates this massive, vicious algorithmic feedback loop. Picture a biased hiring AI. First, it recommends fewer minority candidates. Then, the human managers, who trust the machine, right, they end up hiring fewer minorities based on that recommendation. And then, the AI looks at that new data, sees fewer minorities succeeding, and basically says, got it, I'll recommend even fewer next time. It's wild. The bias prediction literally creates a biased reality.
To make matters even trickier, we have what experts call the black box problem. Deep neural networks are just so incredibly complex that their decision-making processes are frustratingly opaque. Even the humans who built them can't always understand exactly how they got to an answer. Combine that total lack of transparency with the development teams that historically haven't been very diverse, and you get a system where biases are deeply baked in and incredibly hard to pinpoint and fix.
Let's move right into part three and look at what this means on the ground. Real-world discrimination. Let's look at the criminal justice system, specifically predictive policing algorithms like Compass. Ask yourself, would you trust a machine to score your freedom if you knew it was just amplifying historical disparities? Because the data shows Black defendants being falsely flagged as higher risk at completely disproportionate rates. Why? Because the algorithm relies heavily on historical arrest data from over-policed neighborhoods. Meanwhile, white defendants with similar or sometimes literally worse criminal histories are routinely given lower risk scores. The machine is essentially just repeating the past.
And we see this exact same kind of failure in commercial facial recognition. Systems trained predominantly on images of white men, they perform with incredible accuracy for that specific group. But for women of color, the error rates absolutely skyrocket. And this is not just some minor technical glitch, right? High misidentification rates lead to wrongful arrests, totally unfair surveillance, and just a massive breach of civil liberties.
The fallout is literally everywhere. Beyond just justice and security, this automated discrimination limits economic opportunity across the board. We've got hiring algorithms actively penalizing female candidates because they trained on a decade of male-dominated resumes. We've got lending systems using zip codes as a biased proxy for race to deny people credit. There's even healthcare AI misdiagnosing heart conditions in women because the historical training data heavily favored male symptoms. It's a huge issue that actively erodes our social cohesion.
So how do the experts make sense of all this? That's part 4, theories behind the bias. To really understand this phenomenon, scholars apply analytical frameworks like critical race theory to AI. And through this lens, algorithms aren't seen as neutral math at all. They are viewed as sites of struggle. It helps us see how AI can essentially act as digital redlining. So, just like physical redlining used to segregate neighborhoods, these algorithms can mathematically reinforce historical racial discrimination, all while hiding behind the illusion of being completely objective.
Similarly, researchers use feminist technology studies to analyze how deep-seated gender assumptions get baked right into system designs. This framework really helps explain, why a recruitment algorithm might mathematically favor a male narrative of competence, or why voice assistants are almost universally designed with subservient female personas. It challenges the whole man-the-toolmaker idea and points out that our very definition of what counts as intelligence can be heavily gendered.
Which brings us perfectly to Socio-Technical Systems Theory. This theory insists that you simply cannot separate the technology from the society that built it. It's all about joint optimization, meaning we can't possibly fix the technical code without also addressing the human organization behind it. The bias isn't just a simple coding error, right? It's a social error that just got translated into code.
All right, let's pivot to some actionable solutions. In part 5, fixing the warped mirror.
Our absolute first line of defense is fixing the data layer. We have to actively go out and seek underrepresented data points to make sure our data sets actually look like the real world. We need to run advanced bias detection tools before a model is ever even trained. And maybe most crucially, we need explainable AI, or XAI. We basically have to force these algorithms to clearly explain their reasoning to us so we can finally crack open that black box and hold them accountable.
But honestly, to truly fix this, we have to look way beyond just the code. We've got to diversify the human teams building these tools, bringing in a wide range of lived experiences to catch those blind spots. We need to design systems with human-in-the-loop oversight, meaning a machine should never, ever make a high-stakes decision completely unchecked by a real person. And finally, we absolutely need independent auditing and strict regulatory guardrails to make sure vulnerable populations are protected. So, I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought to close out our explainer today. The algorithmic mirror has shown us our societal flaws pretty clearly. The technology is here, and it is incredibly powerful, but as we've seen, it's definitely not inherently objective. The responsibility right now is on all of us, the developers, the regulators, and us, the everyday users, to intentionally shape it. Are we going to let it just perpetuate historical prejudice, or will we demand that it serves as an instrument of real, equitable progress? Something to think about. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and keep questioning the data.